Hello and welcome to today's edition of Your Questions Answered with Father Gruner. I'm John Vennari, and we take your programs that you email to us. Father Gruner answers them. We talk about them. Please continue to send us your questions at questions@thefatimacenter.com. You see the email there, questions@thefatimacenter.com. Here's a question. Why should Catholics not receive communion in the hand?
Well, John, I think that both of us have a lot to say about this.
Yes.
First of all, the very first thing is, it is the law of the Church. Surprisingly, some people think, oh, Father Gruner doesn't know, he's in the Middle Ages or whatever. No, the law of the Church today, 2012, 2014, still reads, communion is to be given on the tongue. Having said that, there's what is called an indult, or a permission to go against the letter of the law under certain conditions. And those conditions are, there are 5 rules and 2 principles. If any one of those 5 rules are broken, or 2 rules or principles are broken, you cannot receive communion in the hand no matter what. Not even the Pope himself tells you. And these rules are based on the faith. They're enumerated by canonists, if you want, but they're actually based on the faith. So, and how do we know these rules? Where do you find them? Well, it's very easy. You can find them, first of all, in the Acta Apostolica Sedis. They are the whole idea of communion in the hand. There's so much material here. The whole idea of communion in the hand was always forbidden all the time for over 1,000 years. It was allowed. It was being done against the law in Holland in 1968 or 69, around that time.
And the reason it was done is because of the new ecumenical spirit, and the Catholic clergy in Holland, too many of them, were imitating Protestants. And Protestantism introduced communion in the hands to show that they didn't believe in the real presence.
Yes.
So it was, it was poison from the beginning.
But but even then, Paul VI, in his document responding to this abuse, this very widespread abuse in 1969, and the document is called Memoriale Domini. And Memoriale Domini is a Latin word which means, it's about the memorial of the Lord. But in his PS, he doesn't write in Latin, he writes in French. And in his PS, he spells out these conditions. So unless you read French, and I don't know if it's ever been translated, but it's in the footnote to Memoriale Domini when he says that they could, if they have permission from the Bishops' Conference of the country. But he goes on to say, under these conditions. Now, one of the first thing is the Blessed Sacrament. So why should we not receive communion in the hand in the first place? Because quite likely, the chances are something between 70 and 95% or 99% that you're going to find a crumb, a particle of the host in your hand after you put it in your hand. Now, am I just making this up? No, in fact, we have an article in the Fatima Crusader which points out that people have experimented to show how much this happens. And they give it time and again to regular, nothing special, but it's just regular hosts that you buy from the people who make hosts. These were not consecrated hosts. They put them in the hand. And they looked how many times that they had crumbs. And the numbers are there. There's a phenomenal number of people.
And our Lord is present in the smallest particle.
And that is defined Catholic dogma. So the first reason we're not doing it is, that's why you don't do it, because you could leave a particle in your hand and you were guilty of sacrilege, especially if you let that particle drop on the ground. Now, I actually, and that's one of the principles that they have, that there should be no danger of sacrilege, meaning if the host falls on the floor, it's a sacrilege. Now, whether you willed it or not, whether you knew it or not, you committed an act of sacrilege. It's a sacrilege against the Blessed Sacrament. And there's nothing more valuable in the whole Catholic Church than the Blessed Sacrament. So, for not committing sacrilege. And that's one of the rules. Now, it happens to be enumerated in Paul VI's footnote, but at the end of the day, whether they put it there or not, that's the law of God.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
So that's why we should not receive communion in the hand.
And also, St. Thomas Aquinas pointed out in the 13th century that only that which is consecrated should touch that which is consecrated. You don't use a chalice at Mass if it's not been consecrated for God's service.
And you don't use a chalice for drinking a glass of beer out of.
Exactly, yes. And you don't use, even a ciborium or a paten if it's not been consecrated. And so the priest's hands are consecrated for use, and only the priest touches the host because his hands are consecrated. As Aquinas says, only that which is consecrated should touch that which is consecrated. And this whole idea of the sacredness of the host and consecration is blown sky high with this practice of communion in the hand. And as a result, what have we seen in the church of the past 50 years? A drastic nosedive drop in reverence for the Blessed Sacrament and also belief in the Blessed Sacrament.
Yes. But in fact, as I'm sure you know, our practice follows our belief follows our practice. If in fact we act towards the Blessed Sacrament as if it's just a casual thing, then we no longer have belief. And even if we have that belief for a while, the more we act that way, the lesser and lesser our belief. On the other hand, if we show respect to the Blessed Sacrament, we receive Blessed Communion on our knees, we receive communion on the tongue, only having the priest touch the host to give it to us. And of course, it's received on our tongue because that's what God intends us to receive it so we can consume it. So our Lord says, unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man, you cannot have life in you. So we need to eat the flesh, of course, in the state of grace. But the point being is that we are not doing anything ourselves to touch it other than what is necessary for the act of Holy Communion. So the point being, though, that and whatever particles fall off on your tongue are consumed there, nevertheless. They're going
Yes.
but whereas they fall in your hand, they're going to drop on the ground. It's an act of sacrilege. So that's the second. That's one of the rules.
Well, the thing is we have to make a part 2 here because
Okay.
we're over time. But we'll pick up next time with Father Gruner explaining what Pope Paul VI said regarding communion in the hand. So we'll see you next time.